There are certain movies where the dreaded R word is brought up frequently in reference to them. But no movie is brought up more in the reboot conversation than Back to the Future. Well, Michael J. Fox himself was asked about the possibility of this happening someday in a recent interview. And he responded in the most perfect way possible. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Now we all know that Hollywood is almost completely out of fresh ideas. That's why they frequently reach into the past as a cheap way of appealing to audiences that they no longer know how to please. And whether it's a remake, a reboot, or a legacy sequel, they always seem to be able to take something beloved and somehow make it worse.
Something very familiar about all this.
Now you could argue that in some instances, it is difficult to improve upon perfection. So these modern filmmakers have to take chances with these established properties in order to make their film stand out. But if the chances you are taking end up tainting the legacy of said film, then maybe it's best if we just leave well enough alone. This is something that Hollywood has yet to learn, and I don't think they ever will. When it comes right down to it, some things just weren't meant to be updated. Some things weren't meant to be introduced to a new generation in that way.
That makes sense.
And more than any other movie that's ever been made, Back to the Future should be at the top of that list. When a movie is great, or even perfect, as Back to the Future is, that means it's timeless. That means the way that story was told should appeal to people from all walks of life and in all age brackets. There is zero reason to think that it can be improved upon in any way, so why bother?
Stop it!
If you're a young filmmaker and you want to do new and exciting things with a time travel movie, then create a new time travel movie and go crazy. Don't ruin the shining example of how to do that concept properly. And Michael J. Fox told Variety something similar in a recent interview when the possibility of a Back to the Future reboot was brought up. He said, quote, "I'm not fanatical. Do what you want. It's your movie. I got paid already." He continued, "I don't think it needs to be. I think Bob and Bob, meaning Zemeckis and Gale, have been really smart about that. I don't think it needs rebooting. Because you're going to clarify something? You're going to find a better way to tell the story? I doubt it."
I don't believe it!
I very much doubt it too, Mr. Fox. Let's analyze this real quick so we can get a clear understanding of exactly what he's saying here. First, like an absolute legend, he says, "I got paid already," which is just another way of him saying no matter what they do, they can't take away what he accomplished. And I believe he is 100% accurate in that statement. Listen, if they decided to remake Back to the Future at some point, being a remake, the events of that film wouldn't directly impact the events of the original trilogy. So yes, in a way, it would be much harder for Hollywood to ruin people's perception of the franchise with a remake. Now, if the remake sucked, and it probably would, people would eventually move on and forget about it. They'll just stick to watching the originals because headcanon is everything after all.
Okay, that did not just happen.
But remakes aren't what Hollywood is into right now. Right now, they are into legacy sequels. And that's where you start to venture into territory of ruining what came before. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody, wants to see a passing of the torch scenario where Marty's son, or more likely his daughter, takes over for him in his time-traveling adventures.
No! Oh, please, God, no!
Yes, we like Back to the Future because it's a great story that's universal, but we also like it because of Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd and what they bring to the movie. To be so arrogant to think you could replace one of them or both of them and get the same outcome just shows me how truly tone deaf a lot of people are. And it certainly wouldn't work with Tom Holland. So can we stop with that BS right now?
I didn't know you. It's Hollywood, baby. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Michael J. Fox also brought up how Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale, unlike a lot of other creators, have been very protective over this franchise, and I applaud them for that. Because your legacy is much more important than a quick cash grab, and I wish a lot more people in Hollywood felt the same way. And finally, he talks about how he doubts there is a better way to tell this story. And he also says that there's nothing really more to clarify. And that's really all that needs to be said.
So you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir!
The Back to the Future trilogy is a well-made, self-contained story with a beginning, a middle, and a conclusion. Meaning there is literally nothing more to say. And I don't think there's a single person in Hollywood right now who is creative enough to come up with an idea to justify another Back to the Future movie. Let's put it this way, Hollywood can't even properly reboot a slasher franchise right now. And those movies have basic stories to say the least. So what makes you think anyone in Hollywood has a chance in hell of rebooting or continuing a perfect film like Back to the Future?
Don't bother.
The truth is that this movie would be DOA the moment it was greenlit and automatically set up for failure. I've said this in previous videos, but filmmakers just made movies different back in the day. And it was clearly a process that can no longer be replicated. And a lot of these classic movies that we all love were very much a product of the time they were created in. Back to the Future is an 80s movie after all, through and through.
Whoa, this is heavy. There's that word again, heavy.
And I shudder to think what that story through a 2023 lens would look like. My guess would be cringe-inducing callbacks and rehashing great ideas and trying to pass them off as their own. And Back to the Future is just better than that. It deserves better than that. And I'm really glad that there are people who were involved with that original movie, who are speaking out and have every intention of protecting that movie at all costs. Because at this point, it's just refreshing to see people trying to protect these properties rather than trying to capitalize on them.
Yeah, well, history is gonna change.
Y'all be cool. Right on.